Alright, I am live streaming on the subject of fairies. This is a live stream on the subject of fairies. Alright, let's take a look at what fairies mean in Wikipedia. A fairy, fae or fair folk. Realms of the Fae is a type of mythical being or legendary creature in European folklore, Celtic, Slavic, German, English, and French folklore, a form of spirit then described as metaphysical, supernatural, or preternatural. Myths and stories about fairies do not have a single origin, but are rather a collection of folk beliefs from disparate sources. Various folk stories about the origins of fairies include casting them as either demoted angels or demons in a Christian tradition, as minor deities or pre-Christian pagan belief systems, as spirits of the dead, as prehistoric precursors to humans, or as elementals. The label this fairy has at times applied only to specific magical creatures with a human appearance, small stature, magical powers, and a penchant for trickery, and at other times it has been used to describe any magical creature, such as goblins and gnomes. Fairies has at the time been used as an adjective with a meaning equivalent to enchanted or magical. So, fairies are magical. That is quite awesome. I was interested in bringing you a live stream of fairies because, I had already done gnomes, I had done Loch Ness Monster, and I had done Bigfoot, so why not fairies? And here we have on the right a portrait of a fairy by Sophie Genbre. The title of the painting is Take the Fairy Face of Woman and Gently Suspending with Butterflies, Flowers, and Jewels Attending. So that's beautiful. Alright, let's take a look at fairy pictures. This is just real fairies typed in Google image search, and let's take a look at some of these pictures, what they bring up. Let's take a closer look at this image, see what fairies pop up. You see here, they seem to have little arms and legs. I don't know if you see that. They have like little legs and arms in these images. It could be either insects or actual fairies. Who knows? It could be real. I've seen in the majority of the pictures on videos that they seem to tend to have little wings and then either legs shooting out and arms and many different sources. So there's people who take pictures of fairies and people who take videos and they end up having the same sources as, having little arms and legs protruding from the body. Let's take a closer look at this one. Oh, look at that. It looks like wings and it's like a light just shining from the center of it. That's pretty awesome. And then it's got like a little where the legs and arms would be. Hmm, that's quite awesome. Alright, and then you see here a fairy circle. As I say, that fairies tend to be close to fairy circles, or fairy rings, as they call them. You see here mushrooms all up in a circle. And quite interesting, if you ever find a fairy ring, just make a wish, Just get close to one and make a wish, see what happens. You never know, you might get lucky. Alright, let's take a look, see what else we have here for pictures of fairies. There seems to be also the fake fairy pictures. There's pictures where people either make cutouts of what fairies would look like and then they place them in places and people take pictures of them and then that kind of ruins the credibility of real fairies, but that is part of the history. Let's take a look here. This is what I believe to be one of the first reports or reported fairies, where the little girl took pictures of cutout fairies and then took a picture of it. Just stood them around her and took a picture. Alright, so are real fairies real? Now that's an interesting question. What would you do if you saw a real fairy. Here we see a picture, an image of a video of somebody in Joshua Tree capturing a fairy, and they had also captured a lot of orbs. You see here right next to the fairy, there's an orb there. But that looks interesting. They have wings, and then the protrusions are leg extensions, and then it also looks like they have antennas. Alright, let's take a look at the next one. Here's another video. Real life fairy caught on camera. Let's take a look a little bit of this video, see what we see. They thought it was either a butterfly or a hummingbird. That is quite interesting. A hummingbird or a butterfly. Alright, also, I like that one. This one is a picture of a child, and then right above it is a little light, like a fairy, and the little girl is looking up at it. You see here, that little light there. Are fairies lights, or are fairies like messenger angels, but in miniature form? Who knows, right? Alright, let's take a look. Also, I was looking at making homes for fairies. I think this is a cool activity that you could do with your family or children, or for yourself if you feel, connected to fairies. Building little homes out of sticks and leaves and like moss, little whatever you feel like building, like popsicle sticks or a little container and then sticking rocks to them, as you see in some of these pictures. They just basically build tiny homes for fairies so that fairies can have a home or a place to stay, kind of like a welcome mat out for fairies, which is quite beautiful thing, I consider. It's quite interesting. You see here the image of a tiny home or a fairy made out of rocks put together with a tiny roof. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's something like a cool activity you could do with kids as well. Alright, let's take a look here. Tales. Tales of real experiences of meeting real fairies. Is it a fairy or is it a fairy? Are fairies real? My first encounter with a fairy was just off the local popular bridleway near where I used to live in country Durham, between Rowlands Gill and Medomsley. I had a phase where I would jog about a mile or so up the track in an attempt to get fit. Often, however, I never made the miles, as I would either be dragged into the woods by some fun nature spirits wanting to play, or by Herne the Hunter, to be led to some interesting places that had a very different feel or vibe to them. On one such occasion, I was led through the undergrowth until I emerged by a stream. There was a small overhanging tree on either side, which seemed to have some sort of being sitting in its central branches, about 2 meters from the ground. How big are fairies? Do fairies carry wands? As I got closer, it resolved into a white creature holding a long stick-type thing, which actually twinkled at one end. Sorry, but I just could not handle that this could be a magic wand. And really confused me was that it seemed to be about 2 feet tall, or 66 centimeters, and seemed somewhat overweight, as I believe that fairies were very small, say no more than 6 inches tall, or 15 centimeters, and slim. Then this encounter caused me a slight confusion, as did the fact that it actually seemed to have some sort of magic wand. Communication with this fairy went something along the lines of, "Are you a fairy?" "Yes, I'm a fairy." "Ah, are you sure?" "Yes." "Are you too big? Aren't you too big to be a fairy?" And then garbled, mumbling, "Ah, is that your magic wand?" I don't think she was impressed with this exchange. She went a little sulky. So a fat, oversized fairy stretched my boundaries about fairies. She seemed to be lonely and wanted to keep to herself. I never asked if she could cast spells with her wand. For step-by-step detail on how I gradually sensed and felt the presence of this fairy, read this post here. So apparently this woman went on a jog and encountered a fat fairy, which had a magic wand with light at the end of the stick. So these are some of the strange stories of people just encountering fairies. Is it made up? Is it real? Who knows? But it is quite an interesting tale to encounter something that isn't just a regular sized fairy. Alright, and let's see something else. Here is another, this is a video of the ultimate real fairy video. As you see here, they have protruding legs and then wings, and then this one seems to have antennas as well. So, quite interesting that the multiple pictures have the same thing of wings and then the little legs kind of jutting out from it, as you see in this picture. You see in this picture, they have wings and then little legs and arms kind of jutting out or sticking out of their body. So, are multiple people having the same hallucination, or could there really be fairies out there? So that's something quite interesting that we could consider. Alright, let's take a look at the Hangout. See if there's anybody in chat. Let's see if I can find the page where... Oh, I think I closed it. Oh well. I closed the page where my Google chat was. Let's take a look, see if anybody is on chat. As you can see, I have the black background for my videos. Alright. Let's see. I'm live now. Let's see if there's anybody in chat that I can say hi to. Yay, Morgan! There she is! Yay! Hey, Morgan. Yay. Alright, so there's also different... Let me close that. It's still echoing. Let me not close it, but mute it. Okay, so in the real fairies, there's different pictures of fairies that I believe could be fake, in the sense that they seem like they're either build they're put together like toys, or they could be like fake legs and fake arms and fake wings, as you see here. I don't believe this to be real. It could totally be just somebody deciding to cast something together and create, what could be something that looks like a fairy. But I don't believe that every single thing that they say out there about fairies is real in that sense. Because there could be also for UFOs, that same thing. It could be a drone, it could be something else, and people decide to put something together and try to act like it was real. But as you see here with these pictures or images of little girls cutting out fairy images and sticking them in different places and then taking a picture of it, that is definitely a fake way of going about finding fairies. But there are people who have real experiences and encounter real fairies and produce real videos, and they show and like real proof, real footage proof, and they show amazing evidence. This guy here, he's from Australia, and as you see here in this video, he's got images of his camera from outside his house, and then it shows like it's a light being with wings and little legs and antennas, and it's something that's amazing, you know. somebody with a real life uh, camera at home taking video footage that is actually, something that could prove that fairies do exist out there. I'm just looking through the bottom of the bar here to see if I can fast forward. You see here on the video, there's a light creature there with little legs protruding out from it. It could be an insect or it could be an actual fairy that lights up, because insects don't usually glow in camera, but these tend to actually glow. Let me see if I can back up a little bit and zoom in on the image. As you see here, they have the little legs and just light up. They light up. That's something that I find fascinating when it comes to the possibility of real fairies. You know, do you see here? This one, it looks like either a hummingbird or a bird, but it's all light. So that's something that you have to consider when it comes to real life fairies. Are they actually made of light? Are they um, either from the angelic realm or from, the spiritual realm? And that's look at this one over here. This is pretty amazing when it comes to somebody having a video in their home and then outside and then capturing these beings just floating about. So that's something quite interesting to consider when it comes to, in comparison to somebody having a fake picture of a fairy cut out on paper, and then people with real videos in their home of light beings. Look how bright this is. A little being just floating around, showing the light that it's emitting, just flying around. So, as always, I always have a story. The closest I've ever come to seeing what I consider to be fairies, it was pretty much just three lights, and it was red, blue, and green, and they were bobbing along. But I don't think that it could be fairies in a sense. Like that's the closest I've ever seen. Something that I've considered to be, the closest to a fairy would just be three little lights bobbing along in my living room. The weirdest thing. So could it be fairies or could it be just atmospheric lights? Because they do describe volcanic lights, and there's I think a kind of light that sometimes happens around earthquakes, that is just like a globe of light that happens. So it could be that, it could be something atmospheric, or it could actually be fairies. Who knows, right? All right, so that's the closest I've come to actually encountering fairies. I don't think that I've been lucky enough to capture anything on video or camera. If I did, it totally would be on YouTube, believe me. But yeah, it's pretty amazing that there's people out there who actually have front porch cameras and I can actually capture these things. All right, let's see if there's anything else that I can see in the picture segment here to see if there's um, evidence of real fairies. All right, let's see this picture. Uh, that looks very pixelated. Doesn't seem to be very lit, but that's quite interesting. All right. Don't see any. Oh, this one looks interesting. Wow. Yeah, you can clearly see the legs and arms on this one. Look at that. That is amazing. Who knows? Who knows, one day one of us could just be walking out there in the woods one day or taking a hike and just come across real life fairies, and then we'd be totally shocked, like, oh my god, they're real. you know? Yeah, so let's see this picture. Interesting. Yeah, they tend to look like little bugs, but they have wings and legs and arms, which is the craziest thing. Yeah. I love one of the things I love doing is just reading stories about fairies because you encounter the weirdest stories, the weirdest things. All right. Okay, so I'm running out of things. I have like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 tabs open. And time flies. Time flies. Alright, let's see if I can look at the chat again. Ah, here we go. Hey, Space River News. Hey, Dark Wolf. Hey, Morgan. Fairies are awesome. So curious about the ones in the UK. Yeah. To find fairies, you have to find fairy rings. The rings are tools. Yeah, I had seen a picture of fairy rings. We have a lot of natural fairy houses under the trees here. That's awesome. I was looking at pictures of building fairy houses like with kids or just if you feel like building a fairy house by yourself, you know. That's pretty cool. To build it and just leave it out there for them. Where we camp each summer and I'm convinced that they live there. Yep. Top of the Rocky Mountains in Idaho. Yep. I think building fairy houses is a great idea. In Michigan, I don't know. Let me look up to see if there are any fairy sightings in Michigan. Something totally fairy fairies in Michigan. Let's take a look at articles. You got to Ann Arbor fairy doors of Ann Arbor, Ann Arbor real estate fairy doors. Okay, fairy doors. So apparently there's a company that just makes fairy doors at Ann Arbor. Fairy trails in Michigan is truly a must for everyone. Yeah, I don't see anything other than fairy doors and fairy trails in Michigan. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool project for kids. I agree, Dark Wolf. It's quite interesting. Fairies are gnomes and Bigfoot. No, it was Nessie and gnomes. Fairies and gnomes, I think, are similar but not quite the same. As I think gnomes go more toward the lore of like earth related and like sometimes they seem to be a little bit spooky and mischievous, you know, compared to the fairies, which are more are seen a sense as a blessing or more of like something really fascinating. But yeah, I think gnomes are a bit spookier and fairies are a bit cheerier, I guess. I don't know. I guess it might be me just looking at it that way, but I find that interesting. All right, guys, I think that's it for my live stream of fairies. I don't have much more to say on the topic, unless you guys have something else that you would like to bring up in chat. Because I have like 14 or 15 tabs. I spent like 30 minutes trying to look as much as I could on fairies. And there aren't that well. Interesting thing, there's not that many videos on fairies, and I would expect there to be a whole bunch more of videos on. Oh, thanks, Dark Wolf. There'd be a lot much more videos on fairies, on YouTube. If people can find videos on their front porch and just make fairy videos, so I would expect more. But all right, guys, that's it for my show, and thank you for watching. This is the most talk I've gotten in my chat. Hopefully it grows to more people, but it's awesome to have Morgan and Darkwolf here with me. Alright guys, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Alright.